Hey folks, today I want to talk to you about why you should consider using a buyer's agent. It's something that I've done now for the last 20 years, and I obviously think there's a lot of benefit in doing that, but I want to demonstrate to you a few things that I think you should consider if you are deciding whether to do it yourself or whether to actually use a buyer's agent. So let's have a look at a few things that a buyer's agent can help you avoid. Now, number one, they can help you avoid buying the wrong asset. And that's really, really important, because if you buy the wrong asset, it's really, really important to know that down the track, it's going to cost you money. So let's have a look at an example. Let's say we were to buy a $500,000 property and we check the performance. If, let's say you could get 5% compounding capital growth, and then say a buyer's agent could just beat that by 1%, what difference would that make? Well, in 5 years, by buying a property that's at 6% rather than 5% compounding growth, you'd be in front by $30,972, which is pretty good, right? It's about 2.5 times what a typical buyer's agent's fee would be for that particular transaction. But it actually gets better, because for the one-off transaction that you pay for a buyer's agent, over time, it starts to look very, very good. Because after 10 years, you would be in front by $80,976 for simply buying a property that had an extra 1% compounding capital growth over time from the selection. But this is where it gets really exciting, because the idea of buying real estate as an investment savvy experience is to buy and hold for the long term. So let's have a look at what this looks like after 25 years. $452,758, you would be better off by just having a property that does better by 1%. So for me, that's clear that if you buy the wrong asset, it's going to cost you a lot of money over time, which is one reason why you'd consider using a buyer's agent. Now, the second reason is I think a buyer's agent will help you avoid procrastination. Now, why is that important? Well, how many times have I had a conversation with someone who said, look, I've been meaning to buy an investment property for the last 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. Some people have been trying to do it their whole working life. And the impact is quite significant, because if we have a look, again, at a $500,000 property, and over time. Now, if we were to buy this property after 25 years, it would look something like that. But if we were to wait just 5 years and get the same trajectory, that difference there is a whopping $542,368. It is just enormous. So if you were to buy the wrong asset and you were to procrastinate, that's almost $1 million that would be out of your pocket from doing those two things. And all that is starting 5 years later. So the compounding of time is so important, because the longer that you're in the game, because a lot of the growth doesn't happen for most people in these early years. It's when it starts to get exponential towards the end where it makes a significant difference. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is if you don't use a buyer's agent, you may pay too much. Now, here's a couple of things to think about in terms of what a buyer's agent does. Really, there's a subsection. So the first part is they do research and planning. And basically what that means is if location does 80% of the heavy lifting for an investment asset, the idea is we will find the right location based on our experience and based on the data to make sure that we give you the best chance of getting a property that at least has a 1% better, but hopefully a much better outcome. So researching and planning really comes down to what location am I going to buy in, and what sort of property are you going to buy? Is it going to be a house? Is it going to be a townhouse? Is it going to be an apartment? Is it going to be a flat? Is it going to be a villa? Is it going to be any one of a different number of property types that you can have? Really comes down to the pre-planning before the actual buying. Now, the second thing is really the property search. So once we've determined what it is that we're going to buy, in which location, what type of property, it really comes to a situation of looking on market for all of the properties, but there's also a scenario where we can look off market. And we see many properties, quite a lot of them we reject, by the way, because they're not suitable for clients. But we see so many properties that are off market where the agent rings us and says, hey, look, this property is for sale. It's not going to the general market. Do you have a client that's interested in it? So we can do that because we can act quickly. We can have a client that's pre-prepared in advance, and then they can buy the property without the rest of the general market seeing it. So you can either get on market, off market. And then the third thing that we do is we do the negotiation. Whether that's private sale or whether that's turning up at an auction. And in both cases, there is an art and a science in getting a property for the best value that we possibly can. So you can see that there is quite a bit that goes on for a buyer's agent in terms of behind the scenes before they actually get to the bricks and mortar. So paying too much really comes down to negotiation, but there's also some real prep work in advance that we need to think about. So for me, the question remains, should you use a buyer's agent? And for me, yes, you will actually pay a fee, and in one of two ways. You'll either have a fixed fee or a percentage of the purchase price. They're generally the two options that are available. But based on that fee, the question is, if I was to pay that fee, can I avoid buying the wrong asset? Can I avoid procrastinating? And can I avoid paying too much? And what impact will that have on me if I do pay a fee? So for me, the conclusion is very simple. Clearly, there's a bit of self-interest in here, given that the fact that I'm a buyer's agent. But just that alone, making sure that you buy the right asset. And sometimes when you buy a property, it's not until 10 years down the track that you can realise that the property was actually the wrong one. And you actually can't get that time back. And what we've seen from this procrastination is even if you lose 5 years, it makes a huge difference. So for me, it's really simple. I believe you should really strongly consider using a buyer's agent, because this is the price that you pay, but over here is the value that you get. So price is what you pay and value is what you get. And in this situation, I think the idea of using a buyer's agent certainly outweighs the cost of engaging one.